Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you from wherever you're joining us today. We're really excited to have you with us. My name is Mosunlayode, and I am the Executive Director at the Africa Philanthropy Forum. We're very excited about today's session because it's about a topic that is very dear to our hearts. Faith and philanthropy is very important to us as Africans. And today we're focusing on the church and philanthropy. We all know that the church plays a very important role in our communities. As Africans, they are the closest to people in our various countries. The church is very much in touch with the individuals. They know what they're going through, and there's a lot of giving that takes place in churches that we don't even capture when we talk about philanthropy on the African continent. So today we have a high-level panel that will be speaking to this issue. They are experienced. I'm sure we have a combined maybe 100 years on this panel. They are men of the cloth. And they also are very much involved in philanthropy in their personal capacities and also through the work that they're doing in the church. I'll just, before I hand on to the moderator, just to say that we're going to have a very interactive and lively session today. So we'd love for you to put in your questions and comments in the Q&A section as the session goes along. And also note that this session is being recorded and we're going to share the recording with you after the meeting. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to our able moderator, Ndidi Okonkwo-Nwuneli, who is the founder of Leap Africa. She's also the managing partner at Sahel Consulting, co-founder of Muna Foundation, and our very own board member. Ndidi, welcome.
Thank you so much, Masu, and welcome to all of you who have joined us for this very important discussion. I'm honored and privileged to be your moderator for what will be a very enthusiastic and hopefully life-changing session. I know all of us are extremely busy, and the fact that you've made time in your schedules to join this session just demonstrates your commitment to the topic and your interest in learning. I thank the APF team and Mosu for your leadership, passion, and dedication. I'm delighted to introduce four amazing men who are going to be sitting on this panel. Our first speaker is Pastor Godman Akinlabi. He's the lead pastor of the Elevation Church. He is an amazing coach, public speaker, pastor with a track record of over 25 years. He's the founder and chair and visionary behind the Pistis Foundation, a nonprofit enterprise established to empower the economically challenged with a focus on education, health, and shelter initiatives. They have worked tremendously over the last years, providing healthcare to over 7,000 beneficiaries, equipping a lot of community groups, designing a fully equipped shelter facility with the support of Lagos State Ministry of Youth Development. And during the COVID-19 lockdowns, they were very active in providing a food bank and medical interventions. Pastor Godman, as I mentioned, is the pastor of Elevation Church with over 12,000 members on 5 branches. They also have a presence in Canada and the UK. And PG, as he's fondly called, is a coach and seasoned consultant, serves on different faculties. He has a first degree in mining and mineral engineering and also holds 2 master's degrees. And he's authored several books, and I'll encourage you to check them out. He's just a change agent in our economy and our society, and we're so proud of the work he does. Our second speaker is Neil Hart. He's the executive head of the Mergon Foundation, a nonprofit company that allocates resources to nonprofit ministries across Africa and the Middle East. To date, they've allocated in excess of 300 million rand in funding and support between 80 to 100 ministry partners annually. After studying design and marketing at the now Nelson Mandela University, he became an entrepreneur, starting several businesses. And he was a founder and CEO and now chairman of Boomtown Strategic Brand Agency, which recently celebrated its 25th year of successful business. He's helped develop strategies for SAB, Unilever, Barlow World, many companies across Africa. And he's a renowned speaker on marketing and communications. He also plants churches, and since 2008, Neil and his wife have been planting churches in different parts of Africa and volunteering and supporting church growth. He speaks 3 languages, so just a wealth of knowledge, plays the guitar, is an exhibited artist. I wonder what Neil does not do. But Neil, we're so thrilled to have you, and thanks for your excellent work. Our third speaker is Reverend Michael Christian Okonkwo, who is a Catholic priest of the Archdiocese of Lagos. He is the Dean of Yaba Deanery and a parish priest of the historic parish of St. Paul's Catholic Church in Ebute Metta. He's a firm believer in the dignity of the human person, and he engages in several empowerment projects. He is the director of the Sicilian Academy of Sacred Music, the Pauline Entrepreneur Ventures, a food processing and packaging initiative, which he established to empower the less privileged through music education and seminars on value addition. He's also the chaplain of the St. Vincent de Paul, which is one of the charitable arms of the Catholic Church, and has a range of other projects in infancy, which he'll discuss during the session. And he loves to listen and play classical music. He loves to travel and read widely. So between Neil and Reverend Okonkwo, we're going to have some music at the end of this session. And our last speaker is Reverend Canon Sami Wainana. He's the provost of All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi. He has served as vicar, archdeacon, assistant provost, and currently provost since 2013. He has 25 years of active service. He has a diploma in divinity, a bachelor's degree in divinity, and an MSc Education and Training for Development from Reading, and a doctor of ministry from Kentucky. His favorite Bible verse is Isaiah 5:51, 1-2. Remember the rock from which you were cut, and to quarry from which you were hewn. Look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who gave birth. When I called him, he was only one man, and I blessed him and made him many. So it's all about multiplying and impact. So thank you so much for joining us. This is just a rich panel. And as Mosu said, we're just looking forward to learning from the wealth of experiences of these phenomenal men who are living examples of what we're speaking about today, which is the church and philanthropy. So I'm going to jump right in. I believe all of our panelists are here. And so I'm going to start with Reverend Cannon. So can you speak to the importance of the engagement of the church in philanthropy and share what your experience has been?
Well, the theological and biblical basis for the church engagement with philanthropy is based on the entire scripture from both the Old Testament and the New Testament. We see both in the Jewish culture, in the Old Testament, that generosity was is talked about, is encouraged amongst the Jewish community in terms of family, but also neighborhood. So it's a theme that runs across the entire Bible. But you see it more with Jesus Christ himself. He is available to be with people. He meets like women who the society had victimized, like the woman at the well, the woman who is caught in the act. And you see Jesus being very generous to people. When he is followed by a big multitude of women and children, the Bible says they couldn't count the men, the women and the children, they counted the men, and he feeds them. It tells you that at the heart of the gospel is philanthropy. And so that would be my theological and biblical basis for my engagement. The All Saints Cathedral, where I have served for the last 11 years, although I've been a clergy for the last 25 years, this is not just an attribute of Christianity that we talk about, it is something that we practice. And we sorry, my Zoom, I don't know what happened there. Okay.
We can hear and see you, sir.
Oh, you
ahead.
can. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes. In our annual budgets, the All Saints Cathedral puts in their budget that 10% of all the giving that we are going to receive, 10% will go to people that are needy. And so it is part of our policy. And when we are doing the annual general meetings, we present an account of what we have done with the funds that we have received in our budget in terms of our philanthropy to needy people. These are the areas that we support. Number one is scholarship to students that are poor, but yet want to go to school. And so every year we have hundreds of students that we pay for their high school and their colleges and universities. So the first one is scholarship. The second one is the feeding program. We have areas within Nairobi where we reach out to the poor and feed them. And Cathedral is known to have a food bank that we are able to receive food from members of the Cathedral and be able to distribute to people that are needy. The other one is the medical fund. We work also amongst the poor in the city, and we are able to work with hospitals around us so that we can have a memorandum of understanding. And whenever we meet the poor and the sick, we are able to take them to such hospitals to get help. There are many, and I may not have to enumerate everything, but from the theological and the biblical basis, you can be able to see as a church, we are willing to fulfill the mandate as it has been given by Jesus Christ. Maybe later I can be able to share with you the practical challenges that I have seen are coming in the name of the church engaging. If you're not very well structured, you can create dependency rather than challenging issues of poverty. But maybe I can share that later.
Thank you so much, Reverend Canon Sami. This is amazing. I love the fact that your church has been deliberate, allocating 10% annually and actually having, a governance structure and a strategy for how those funds will be utilized. And yes, would love to hear more about the challenges and how these type of interventions can be scaled. I'm going to move swiftly to Pastor Godman. Elevation Church has been deliberate about its philanthropic activities. You have actually been active in the Africa Philanthropy Forum and been deliberate about creating a foundation at the Elevation Church. Why did you follow this path, and what impact have you been able to achieve so far?
Okay, thank you very much, Ndidi. And thank you for having me, Ms. Sue, and the APF team. And I want to also welcome all the other co-panelists. Talking about our paradigm as a church, it's about Matthew 5:13 to 19, where Jesus said, we are the light of the world, the salt of the earth, and all that. And that has driven what we've done over the years as a church. Now, talking specifically about being a little more strategic about it and setting up the foundation, I'll say that we had an experience in the first year of the church. So the Elevation Church started in 2010, October. October this year will make it 11 years. In the first year, the first Christmas as a church, we decided to do a food distribution event, like a party for the less privileged. We were in the heart of Lagos City. That's Onikon, that's Lagos Island. That was where our church started from. And if you know that area, that's where you have the bulk of homeless people and the people, street urchins and all that, people that, have been neglected. So we said the Sunday was a Boxing Day. And after the service, we went out there. We decided to have a party. We didn't just pack food. We brought out good plates and all that. And we invited them to sit with us and eat with us. And our church was just 2 months old. And from that experience, we saw that if we're going to make impact and we're going to be the salt of the earth, this is one of the greatest ways we can achieve it. After a few months into that, when we were having that periodically, we then decided to have what we call Elevate 200, from the name of our church, Elevation Church. So we set a target for ourselves in 2011. We want to elevate 200 people, and we want to empower them, you know, and all that. And from doing that, sporadically, just helping, feeding every Sunday. So we started feeding every Sunday, and then started looking at their health issues. They were mostly homeless and all that. At the end of the year, we analyzed our results. And what we realized was that there were so many activities, but we didn't make enough impact. So we empowered some people, gave them money to start out something, put some of them in adult education classes, but they didn't have homes. So all the resources we gave them, you know, got lost. If you know Lagos well, you know a particular area that was not so far from there, around the TBS or race course. That's where they slept on the road and all. So people will come and take what we're giving them from them. So we realized that if we're going to go about this and not just engage in activities, but really make impact, we will need to slow down, be less audacious about numbers, but more audacious about impact. And then we had to plan. So we then did a 5-year plan. This is what we're going to do. We have to be more strategic. One of the things we realized was that the moment you're more strategic, your impact will go up. Yeah, notwithstanding the amount of activity. So activity does not translate into impact, except there's a strategic imperative and a huge strategic input. So that brought us into setting up a foundation, wanting to staff the foundation, wanting to follow a particular trajectory of activities that can lead to the outcome that we want. We want to be able to get their kids into school. So we're going to pre-qualify them for scholarship. They're going to come under the foundation, not just the church, because they come to the church and they expect the church to just help. And so we weren't making the kind of impact we wanted to make. That drove us into, you know, becoming more strategic and setting up the foundation. And what we've seen over time is that the level of the output has gone up, not just the activities. Now we can say we have 100 people on scholarship and they're doing well. We're monitoring them. We're doing a lot with them, you know, and their family. The mothers of kids on our scholarship are also being taken care of in another program for mothers. You know, so all kinds of things. Some of those kids now we've now started as shelter for these kids. So the kids in the shelter are also the kids, you know, on scholarship, and then there's specialized schools that they go to. So everything is now tying up, you know, nicely, and we're looking forward to a lot more impact. In the area of health is the same thing. We just used to do health activities, you know, measure blood pressure, give drugs on the street. But now we have data to work with. We gather, you know, them, we pick the data, what's the prevailing disease, and who can we partner with to solve this problem with them. So those are the things that we have seen, and I can tell you that the level of impact has gone up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pastor Godman. I mean, this is amazing. Activities does not translate to impact. Impact has to be comprehensive. You have to leverage data. Partnerships are key. So many words of wisdom and insights from your work at the Elevation Church and through your foundation. Well done. I was nodding as you were speaking, because this is classic, what we would love to see escalated across the continent. So thank you for your excellent work. Now I'm moving up to Reverend Father Michael Christian Okonkwo. You know, churches play a pivotal role in communities. They're so close to the people, and the Catholic Church is well known for its philanthropic activities. But the needs are escalating, and in the COVID era, we've seen, you know, unprecedented levels of hunger, unemployment, anxiety in the land. What roles have you played in the peak of the pandemic, and how have you been strategic about your philanthropy?
Thank you very much, Ndidi, and all the panelists for having me, and of course, the foundation for also inviting me. It's a huge pleasure to be here. Now, straight to your question. Your first statement is perfect. Indeed, the church plays and has always played a pivotal role in the communities that they exist. The church has existed for and exists within the people. And of course, it is even the people that populate the church. The Catholic Church, in line with its core mission, cares for people and for individuals in a holistic manner. You see, the Catholic Church from time immemorial has recognized the dignity and the development, the holistic development of the human person. And that is why, wherever she finds a church or she founds a church, she would establish schools for the intellectual development of the person, set up hospitals for the physical well-being of the person, and then build churches for the spiritual health and well-being of the person. So you see, this covers the three major aspects of the human person: the body, the mind, and the soul. And so this is a perfect example of being strategic in addressing the root causes of social issues, using a long-term approach. And of course, that is what philanthropy is all about. Being close to the people, Christian churches are always in tune with the needs of the people. And so they strive to respond adequately to these needs. And many faith-based organizations, congregations usually gather in big churches on Sunday, but I tell you that they also have smaller cells and gatherings of Christians in their neighborhoods during the weekdays. Some other churches call that fellowship. We in the Catholic Church, we call ours small or basic Christian communities. These are, areas where parishioners gather in their neighborhoods to meet and to interact with one another outside, the big gatherings on Sunday. And it is within these small gatherings that, human interaction is forged, and they get to know themselves very well. The church interacts with the people, and the people also interact with the church. Now, narrowing down to my experience during the pandemic, we actually leveraged on these small Christian communities that we had scattered all over, wherever our parishioners exist. And we used those small Christian communities in a very strategic manner to be able to identify those who were in their need of support, financially or otherwise. And it was a huge success, I can tell you. In fact, in the Catholic Church in Lagos, we have about over 200 parishes, and each parish was mandated by the Archbishop to ensure that they reached out to their indigent parishioners. And so you can imagine that multiplication. My parish alone, we reached out to about more than 1,000, 2,000 of them, two different situations. And I'm also aware that if this happened in the Catholic Church, I'm also very much aware that it happened in other many churches in Lagos and all over Nigeria. And speaking about being strategic in philanthropy, the Catholic Church also has groups and societies that are founded with charity and philanthropy as its sole aim. For example, we have a society called the St. Vincent de Paul, and these societies are both at the local level, at the archdiocesan level, and even at the international level. We have societies called the Justice, Development, and Peace Commission. This group of lawyers and social workers go out to seek those who experience injustice, go out to look at areas where the church can partner with government in the areas of development, and seek to bring about conflict resolution. And then, of course, too, we have what is known as the Caritas. This is an international organization in the Catholic Church called Caritas International, and then it's domesticated in Nigeria as Caritas Nigeria, and then you bring it, further down to Caritas Lagos. And what we do in Lagos is during the season of Lent, every third Sunday of Lent, all the Catholic churches in Idas of Lagos make a contribution, and they take about 25% of what they contribute, and it is put in a common fund. And then you will get requests from institutions and organizations who need help. And those requests is gone through by a certain committee, and funds are allocated to them. For maybe they want to build orphanages, or they have some challenges in terms of structures that they want to build, or they want to build hospitals and they need some money. So that's so Caritas Lagos and the Caritas Forest is a specialized agency of the church for coordinating development and humanitarian interventions during crisis period and even beyond. So for us, philanthropy is not a seasonal thing. It's part of who we are as a church. It's part of our DNA, our identity. And we always like to say that we we have a fundamental option and make a choice for the poor. And so we are always on the side of the poor, ensuring that our reach out to them is holistic and is very, very strategic. So finally, for many of us, this pandemic period was a rare opportunity to concretize the teaching of Jesus Christ about love of our neighbor. And so we experienced an overpouring of generosity from people who had and who were ready to support those who did not have. So people were willing to reach out and to give out to those in need. And what the church did with its organizations and its group was just to act as a channel to get from those who were willing to give to be able to help out those who had challenges and who had difficulties. So that's in a very summary form. I could go on and on in a very form how the church has over the years has been holistic in its development of the human person, and even in everyday situation that people face, so that whatever it is that we do is effective, is efficient, and it's holistic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Okonkwo. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for explaining all the different facets of the Catholic Church's engagement and your passion for strategic philanthropy. I'm going to move on to Neil, who is our last panelist to speak on this first round of questions. Neil, your bio just left me in awe, and I'm definitely going to request a one-on-one discussion to see how you've done it all. But just tell us briefly, what was the inspiration between the founding of the Mergon Foundation, and how does faith shape your work and the process of giving?
Thanks, Didi, and great to be with you all. Let me just start by saying that this is really not my story. It actually belongs to our founder. And so the Mergon story is a story of a transformative event that happened probably 40 years ago with our founder, Francois van Niekerk. And Francois was in a particular predicament. His business was functionally bankrupt. And in that moment, as a nominal Christian, he cried out to God and said, God, if you save my business, I'll give 30% of all that I earn to you. He jokes now saying that 30% of a bankrupt business was zero, but God took him at his word, and Francois carried through on that promise. And over time now, we sit close to 40 years later, 70% of our business is in God's hands, and we've actually transferred the ownership of actually more than 70% into the beneficiary, which is the kingdom of God. And so this is really Francois' legacy to us. I lead the foundation part of Mergon, and we're also an investment company, and we invested across the world in different industries. And the sole aim of Mergon is to make money to resource God's kingdom. And so we're giving away a lot more than 70% at this stage. It began in South Africa and to really resource into South Africa. But over time, this has moved across the African continent and into the Middle East. We're a resource partner to, I'd say over 100 ministries. And we've, probably resourced to the tune of about 58 million over the last number of years. Not only into ministries to help them with their needs, but we've also developed a Kingdom Development Fund, and that fund is to create sustainability initiatives with ministries. And missional environments are often environments that are very poor and desperate, and we're hoping to help stimulate economies within those environments. And then we also have a comprehensive bursary for high-performing youth that are living in poverty. And so we do a number of different things. But the role of faith, faith has influenced everything we do. Our focus is kingdom impact, and kingdom impact requires a lot of role players. We can't all play all the roles, and so it's important for us to know which role that we are playing. And so our role is to resource into the kingdom. That's our particular role and our calling from the Lord. And of course, with faith comes generosity. It's a powerful mandate of our faith. Jesus commands us to give. It's one of his key commands. When we look at all the different commands of Jesus, giving is one of the greatest things, giving our time, our treasure, our talents. And of course, stewardship is another mandate of faith. It's a biblical mandate. How do we steward the gifts and talents and the resources that we do have? And we know the story of the good steward who created a good return on what was entrusted to him. And when we do that, we are given greater authority. And in the biblical story, that steward is given authority over regions and over cities. And so if the church is going to have carry out its mandate on this earth, if it's going to have authority over regions that are not under God's kingdom yet, where God's kingdom is coming, then we have to be good stewards, and we have to carry a spirit of generosity in all we do. Stewardship is faithfulness, and God is looking across the earth for faithful, generous stewards that can be entrusted with more. And, you know, I think the biggest question we have to ask ourselves in this generation is, are we going to be selfless stewards? Or are we going to be, church people with egos and logos? And, you know, I think when we look across the church today, the church is not in good shape. We have to be honest about that. When we look across the world, and it's a lot of egos and a lot of logos and a lot of, man domain. And I think God is looking for selfless stewards who are going to be generous with what he's entrusted us, when we take hands and we create unity. So faith really influences everything that we do at Mergon.
Thank you so much. I love the fact that you give 70% to ministries and to great work. And the concept of stewardship is so important. Thank you for surfacing that. That is critical. The importance of being stewards of what God has entrusted into us. And then you also raised the fundamental issue, the state of the church in Africa and in the world. And the state of the perception of the church as well is critical. So thank you, Neil, for raising those issues. We have so many questions that I mean bubbling up within me, and the APF team has charged me to take on, but I don't think we have a lot of time because we want to engage our participants. So I'm going to encourage all our participants to please put your questions in the Q&A box. I've seen some questions coming in. Thank you. Please keep them coming. And if they're specifically assigned to anybody, please state them as well. I'm going to take the first question. I'm going to be ruthless to our panelists about time. Please, 1 minute for each of the responses so we can get as many questions in as possible. So the first question that has come in is, curious as to whether the speakers think about philanthropy as being also about the contributions of their members, as it is about the institutional application of these contributions. So we've heard about, the opportunity to set up a foundation, the Catholic Church setting up different agencies, a church in Kenya setting up a 10% allocation. And I'm curious, it's stewardship, it's governance, it's transparency. And so when we think about philanthropy, what about the institutional application of contributions from members? And I would like to add on the importance of transparency and accountability, and how churches are accountable to their members, and how we can foster that culture within our faith-based organization. So who wants to start off with that question? Okay, Pastor Godman, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Ndidi. I'll say that the greatest asset of any church or faith community should be our people. And the aggregation of gifts and talents that we have within the church must play a very important part in our philanthropic effort. We've been able to leverage that with thousands of parishioners, just leveraging their talents, their gifts, and all that, to be able to do a lot more than we can even pay for. And I'll say that one of the things that can help a church to be more strategic in our approach to philanthropy is partnership. And that partnership, we have to say that charity starts from home. Partnership with people within our own congregation first, startups, businesses, other NGOs within the congregation, then outside of the congregation, then other churches, and then government and all that. If we are able to put all that together, we're going to be able to do a lot more. Maybe I should stop there for now.
Thank you. I love the concept of partnerships with other churches. I want to put that out there. Foundations. Yeah. And Neil talks about us leaving our logos and egos at the door. The needs are so great. Partnerships with government. The Catholic Church has done this very well in a place like Ghana, where through a partnership with all the government, they were able to reduce maternal mortality by 50% in all the Catholic hospitals across Ghana. So the Catholic Church hospitals became that vehicle for transformation. Partnerships with other nonprofits. So thank you, Pastor Godman. Canon, Reverend Canon, I want to come back to you because you talked about 10%. And my challenge is why not 90% of inflows being used for the charitable purposes? Why just 10%? And how can we ensure the needs are so great? So how can we ensure that we can actually do more with the funds that come into the church?
Actually, just for the sake of clarity, let me say 100% of all the monies we receive actually end up going to charity. The church, as one of the panelists say, live within and for the people. And so the budgets can have different vote heads, but definitely all that goes into the people. But I also want to say how many churches are intentional about putting a percentage aside in terms of philanthropy. And I think for us, that is the bare minimum. So we can give and give more. And the more we receive, we are able to give. So we end up giving even much more in our budget. But allow me to answer another question that I saw there and I was interested in answering. It's about how do you avoid creating dependency? Because some of the challenges that we have identified as we have worked with people is the problem of creating dependency. And that is the problem you see in Africa, dependency with the West, and now dependency amongst the Africans themselves, because there are some rich churches, like some of the churches that we serve. One of the things that we did was to collaborate with churches around us, the Catholic Church, the Pentecostal churches, the Anglicans, and others, and we divided Nairobi city into sections. And we created what we call Love in the Name of Christ. Love in the Name of Christ, or Loving, is like an organization that brings churches together, and we are able to pull resources together so that we also employ people from our churches that can be able to manage such resources and account to us as the leadership of churches, be able to identify real problems around the areas where we live. Because the challenge is, somebody comes today to All Saints Cathedral, they are given food or money or medication, they go to the next church and the next church, and you create a very bad culture. And so two things I will say. One is the organization Love in the Name of Christ, where churches come together regardless of their denominations and be able to put resources together so that people can be sent to one place where they can get their help rather than moving from one area to another, and the biodata is developed. But let me also say, as the All Saints Cathedral, we work amongst the poor. And this is what we have. We now have a model that we have been, that has been very successful in Nairobi, and it's being now replicated in other parts of the city where there is poverty. We go to the community as a church. We identify together with the community the needs. Then we identify what are the local resources that are there, because people are not without something. They at least have something that we can use. Then after that, we identify then the gaps. What is it that is truly lacking? And we as a church, at All Saints Cathedral, we are able to provide those resources. But beyond that, we make sure that we develop leadership, because you can do all these things without structures of leadership, then it is wasteful. So we create committees, like one of the programs that we have in the city is providing clean water. And we provided, the people had the land, we built houses for them, but they also contributed. Then we provided them with plastic tanks where they will use their roofs to tap all the rainwater. Then we identified that it needed to be purified. And we were able to provide those resources. And then we created a committee that is able to constantly evaluate on the needs that they have. So once we solved the water problem, the next one was the school. And we were able to work with
I love that example. I love the example of the community engagement, the M&E, measurement and evaluation agency at the community level, and partnerships with other organizations. I want to hear from Reverend Michael on this issue of dependency. The city of Lagos is often considered the poverty capital of the world. We don't like that, that reputation. But how do you know when to stop, and how do you curtail this dependency mentality? Please unmute, Reverend Michael. Please unmute.
Okay. Well, that's a very major challenge with regards to philanthropy, the dependency syndrome. And I would use a very simple illustration that that we all know, that rather than give people fish, you teach them how to fish. So I would always go towards the goal of empowerment, skill acquisition, empowerment seminar, and helping people to be able to, because God has given to each and every one of us a skill that we have, and we only just need someone to help us to develop it. And then, of course, too, the church can get involved in programs, that affect the people, programs about the environment, security, development, governance. So if we're able to do this, and we actually are able to identify the problems that people have, and not just give them peanuts every time they come, you give them something just to be able to satisfy their physical yearning. Man is beyond the physical. He needs many other things. So if we're not strategic in that, then we're simply going to be creating that dependency problem where people just keep coming back to get those peanuts from us. If we're not strategic and looking at the problem from a holistic perspective and seeing how can I help this person holistically so that he does not come back every time. For me, it's skill acquisition, empowerment, and then the church also forming, all of those things that would help the person get out of that and have dignity for himself, because for me, dependency robs you of your dignity. Help that person to have a dignity of his own, to be able to work and earn something for himself. And once you're able to get someone to that level, you've done a lot more for that person than just giving him, little money when he comes around, or little stuff when he comes around. That's my response to that.
Thank you so much. And so we're coming back to you, Neil. You have a question from Kelechi, and I think all of us are curious about this model of 70% and how it's actually determined and allocated. And I'll join that with Sepia's question around governance in philanthropy, accountability in tithes and offerings. Given that you work with so many churches across Africa, you have a holistic perspective. How can we drive more transparency and accountability to members when they do contribute?
Yeah, two great questions. Thank you. On the first, the model, the question is what do I mean by 70% really? One of the clever things I think that our founder did is he didn't approach philanthropy the way most people approach it, which is whatever I get in this year, I give a percentage out of it, whether that's 10% or more. But what he did was he reinvested that. And so with the mentality of stewardship, he reinvested for return on investment. And so it's 100% correct legally that 70% of all of our assets are owned by the foundation. And so there's no argument at the end of the day whether that money is going to be distributed or not. It doesn't mean we distribute 70%. We actually distribute something like 5% of our net asset values every year. So it's a combination of growing our liquidity as well as growing our net asset value. I don't want to get complicated on that one. But when we reinvest our assets for the sake of the kingdom, they grow. And as they grow, we can distribute more. So our distributions have grown tremendously over the years because of that thinking. So certainly 70% is actually in the legal hands of the foundation. The question on governance is really an excellent question. And there's a sort of a follow-on question about should the church not be more transparent? We fund specifically ministries and NGOs. We don't actually fund churches. We used to, and we stopped funding the churches, not because of any theological challenges that we have, but a church, if the theology in a church is good, people will be giving. You know, if we train people on generosity, there should be plenty of money. Whether the church is a large, rich church or a small, poor church, I don't think it actually makes a difference. We all either have a grain of rice or we have enough to give. So from the perspective of good theology in a congregation, I think we should be fine there. And that's why Mergon actually moved its focus to ministries that were operating outside of the church into the communities. And so, you know, if we're really going to change and impact the world, we can't keep inviting people into a building. The building has to go outside to impact the world. And that's particularly what Mergon wants to be funding. And we will not fund a ministry or nonprofit that doesn't have audited financials and good governance and transparency. So we go through a fairly good due diligence process. If we were still funding churches, I would expect exactly the same. I believe churches should be transparent, and it would be wonderful, as the Reverend said, that most of the money that comes into the church actually goes outside of the church to impact the communities around us. The church really has to be a change agent in the world today.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you. I really advocate for transparency, the annual financials, audited financials, actually an annual general meeting with members to share what the church has accomplished and how the funds have been utilized for impact, and even a database that they can reach out on the web and examine. So thank you for sharing all of that. I'm going to come back to Pastor Godman and the question of dependency, but Pastor Godman, I'd like you to also take on Ronke's question, which is, isn't Christian charity being used as a patch for social injustice instead of addressing the social issues that are the root causes of poverty? All the examples of philanthropy used emphasize the failings of a government. What is the church's role in driving the right kind of change? So can you take on the dependency and then address this issue around social injustice and holding government accountable?
Okay, thank you, Ndidi. Just one thing that I want to say about the issue of dependency. One is that I want to recommend a book, which I believe all of us should read, which, a book I read many years ago, which is titled Toxic Charity, written by a guy called Robert Lupton. And he said, Toxic Charity, How Churches and Charities Ought Hurt Those They Help and How It Can Be Reversed. It's a great book. And if I can just put it in plain language, what Robert Lupton was saying there was, look, we need to separate between crisis and empowerment. Empowerment is for long-term solutions. Crisis is to give respite in the immediate situation that people are going through. And the churches confuse a crisis situation with a situation of lack of empowerment or lack of priority where people are wasting their lives. And that we should create systems that can bring people out of the pit, not just when they're in crisis. So in our philanthropic effort or charitable effort, we need to separate those. We shouldn't stay in the crisis mode, So that really helps us to focus our effort a lot more on empowerment and just a little bit of it towards, okay, when the crisis comes, when somebody just, when an accident happened, when a flooding happened and people lose their homes, all those kind of things. But some people want to live like as if they're living in crisis perpetually, and they're always coming to the church, and they remain on the same spot, and that's toxic charity. All right. On the second question about the social injustice, bad governance, and stuff like that, when government fails, when leadership of a nation fails, then the church, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, becomes a social safety net where there's no social security structure for the community, and most of the money has been wasted, and all. I believe that the church must lend a voice to that from time to time. We must use the opportunity that God has given us to collaborate with government, not essentially to be the enemy of the state, but to be a collaborator in the welfare, seeking the welfare of the people. And when we have to confront, we have to be bold enough to confront, because our constituency remains the people. And most of them, we always get the short end of the stick when government fails. So when we do it, one of the things I had to get used to is to try as much as possible to, how do I put it now? kind of curate my motive, you know, to be able to say, look, why do you want to speak to government? Why do you want to speak in the media? Why do you want to lead a protest, for instance? Why do you want to lend your voice to a protest? It's not because I want to be popular. It's not because I want to be known. It's not because I want to be known as an activist. I'm not an activist. I'm a clergy. But a clergy can become an activist if it's for the sake of the people. Yeah.
Thank you. I know this is a very sensitive subject in many of our countries. So thank you, Pastor Godman, for taking it on. We're out of time. It's been so great. I have about 10 questions I would have loved to ask, but we're going to start rounding up now. And I'm just going to pose one final question to all of you. When we look at the state of affairs of the African continent, it's quite shocking. I've been a part of the UN Food System Summit, and the level of hunger has doubled in West Africa. Indicators from a political climate, social climate are quite worrying. And we as people of faith, leaders in the faith community, are being called on to step into bigger shoes, to be philanthropic, to be strategic, to make impact, and to demonstrate what Christ has called us. All of you made that case, to be the light, to be the salt in darkness. So what challenge would you throw out there? What key takeaway would you throw out there to those listening? And what charge would you give them? They want to get more engaged. They want to support their churches to be more philanthropic. When I did my TED Talk on faith, so many people called me and said, I want my church to be more strategic about their giving. So I want you to give a 1-minute charge that encompasses all of these issues. What key takeaway would you want everyone listening to have, and how can they be empowered to be strategic as change agents within churches, as leaders in faith, to make a difference at this difficult time in our history? So I'll start with you, Neil.
Thank you. Great question. You know, I would say that we can do this in our own strength, or we can do this with the spiritual strength that God gives us, and we can work at it. But I think there's one key ingredient, and God is busy doing this in a greater measure across the earth today, and that is unity building. Unity building, I bring that up because it's part of generosity. So when you speak about philanthropy, we often refer to finances. But there's something about, I mentioned earlier, on our time, our treasure, and our resources that builds into the unity of those around us. When churches and ministries beginning to take hands with each other and share their resources, God is going to do something supernaturally powerful that we've never, ever seen before. And the beginning of this is already happening. If you think about something like the generosity journey, which McClellan have been doing, it's taking off more in Africa than any other continent. That's astounding when you think about Africa has not been a group of countries that has been the most generous. And so God is beginning to do something unique around both generosity and unity. And so my charge, very simply, is take hands with a ministry or church alongside of you, and let's get the spiritual power of the Holy Spirit behind us, because where there's unity, God commands a blessing. And I think we've not even scratched the surface of what that scripture really means, but we're going to see it soon.
Powerful, powerful. Unity and faith. Hand in hand, we can transform ecosystems. Thank you. Reverend Cannon, what's your charge?
Sorry, I dropped off, but let me say, to me, what I would encourage is the collaboration between churches. We have become silos. Denominationalism is killing the church. We cannot be able to command a blessing when we are all disintegrated. If churches would come together, we can be able to have lasting impacts as we deal with poverty and need in our continent. But clergy must deal with problems of sectarianism and the silo mentality and open up, bring resources together, because at the end of the day, we are serving the same community. That will be my parting shot.
Thank you so much. Pastor Godman. Please unmute, Pastor Godman.
Sorry about that. I was just speaking. I didn't. So I'll say that I agree with what Neil said and what the Reverend said. Collaboration, unity and all that. We need that. I just want to add this to it quickly. For the churches, I also feel we need to do a lot more with data, because we have the opportunity of gathering people online, offline, at events all the time. We can do a lot more with data. We can mine the data that we can be more strategic with data gathering, data mining. We know what people are going through emotionally, spiritually, physically, when we use the data that we have access to well enough. And for parishioners and church members, I will say that we should collaborate more with our churches to build stronger communities outside of the church, because it's when we're active in our communities that we can know what is going on in the community. We're not then segregated as, oh, we are Christians and we can pray and God will come through for us. What about all the other people, especially when you live in, in Africa, where you know that people are going through stuff. So just like we talk about community policing in Nigeria, for instance, now, where we know that there's no security without everybody taking responsibility for security. So everybody can take responsibility for being their brother's keeper by being active in the community. Then you can challenge your church to meet specific needs that you can literally do a paper on it and submit it to your church board and say, this need is, is available in my community. I'm challenging my church where I've been contributing, where I've been a vital part of to meet this need. Yeah, that's my challenge for church.
Thank you so much. And last but not the least, Father Michael, Reverend Michael, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I would like to take off from where Reverend Godman, finished from, which is getting involved. Like you said, many a time we tend to separate being a Christian from living within the community. I said before that the church lives within the community. So we have to get involved with programs that affect the community, because if it affects the community, it also affects us. So there's no, the passage of scripture just comes to mind when Jesus said in John chapter 17, 14 and 17 that, yes, we are not of the world, but we are in the world. And we are in the world to create an impact, to make the world a better place. So we all need to get involved. So the time of saying, oh, it doesn't concern me, or I just focus on my own life is over. We need to get involved. Issues affecting the community, environmental issues, like you said, security issues, developmental issues, governance issues, we all need to get involved. And then the second thing is building structures within the particular church denomination and with other denominations as well, as Mr. Neil has said. Everyone together, if we're able to have structures, we can all work together such that our interventions will be well-rounded, will be strategic, and of course, it will be effective and efficient. That's my takeaway.
Thank you so much. I can't round up all that you have shared. So many words of wisdom. I've been inspired, I've been challenged, and I'm going to pass on to Mosu, but I just want to say that you men of God give me hope. You inspire me, you challenge me and encourage me, and I want to bottle up all that you've said and spread it to all the other men and women of God across the continent. So keep doing what you're doing. And for those who have joined us, may God bless and keep you. And may the inspiration that you've gotten this morning and afternoon push you to serve as the salt of the earth, the change agent that God has called you to be, and empower you with humility to work across the divide with other denominations to transform our continent. Let us change the narrative of what it means to be an African philanthropist, a Christian African philanthropist in the 21st century. God bless you all. Over to you, Mosu. Thank you again. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our phenomenal panelists. Thank you, Neil, Pastor Godman, Reverend Michael, Reverend Cannon. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ndidi. Thank you for skillfully moderating this panel. I'm truly inspired and challenged, as you said. Thank you to our speakers. I have learned so much. I think one of the most profound things I've heard today is where there is unity, God commands a blessing. We know this, but just hearing it again is just a reminder of what God is able to do when we come together. And, in preparing for this session, one of the statistics I came across was by Nedbank in South Africa that was conducted in 2019 that says that the number one challenge that people have identified or how to give to people or how to give to people in need are religious organizations. And that just goes to show how much belief and trust people have in religious organizations. And there is, from the questions we've heard, the expectations are high. A lot of people are looking at the church to set the right examples. And I just, coming into this, or listening to everyone, I feel like we need another session, a masterclass with religious organizations and faith-based organizations on how we can be more strategic. So look out for that. We're going to be sharing more information on what will follow up, because we can't have, this is just the beginning. There's a lot more that can be done. And that's why the Africa Philanthropy Forum exists. And so we're going to be reaching out to faith-based organizations, churches. And if you're part of this conversation, if you're listening to us today and you feel it's important that your church gets involved, your foundation, please reach out to us at African Philanthropy Forum so that we can work together to move the needle on development and get the people of faith, people of God, active in transforming our communities. Thank you to everyone. We wish you a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll send you the recording and additional information on how you can get involved with APF. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.